creature in my neighbor's window. I just saw the weirdest thing through my neighbor's window. I just returned from bartending, so it was about 3 a.m. My apartment was dark except for the overhead light in the kitchen I just flipped on after walking in, and all the windows across the courtyard from mine were dark too, except for one. I went to my window for a closer look. There's a girl who lives in that part of the building, and I wasn't watching her or anything, but I could see her there, sitting in her own mostly darkened apartment, lit only by the bluish light from her laptop screen. She was up working late, I guess. Anyway, I started to turn away, but I saw her move suddenly. She looked over her shoulder, then turned back to her screen. I didn't understand why at first. I thought maybe someone said something to her, but it didn't look like there was anyone else in the apartment with her, though it was hard to tell in the dark. She looked again, then she got up. Her apartment is the same as mine. We live in a big U-shaped building, and we both have the same large windows across the entire back of the room, so I could see her clearly as she walked all the way across her apartment and then stopped, just staring at the far wall. I glanced instinctively toward my matching wall, but of course there was nothing there to see. Just my second-hand couch, cinder block coffee table, and the rusty air vent on the wall above them. When I looked back, she was already walking back to her desk. She sat down and it looked like she put in earbuds, so I figured something must have been making a noise she didn't like. Pipes rattling, maybe? At this point, I guess I got curious and I watched a little longer, but I swear I was about to turn away again when... Well, this is when things got weird. I saw her air vent cover just kinda pop off and fall on the floor. It must have hit with some kind of thud, but she obviously didn't hear it. Okay, this part is kinda hard to write, because it doesn't make any sense. I'm just gonna tell you what I saw. Something sort of poured out of the vent. Or someone. I'm gonna go with something. She kinda landed on the floor and then stood, and she was enormous. She was so thin I could see her hips and ribs jutting out underneath that pale skin. I don't think she was wearing anything, but she had this lanky pitch black hair that was so long it was kinda hard to tell for sure. But her arms, something was seriously wrong there. They hung down past her knees and seemed to just kinda peter out. No hands, just a sort of nub. I wish I had done something then, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't understand what was happening. This strange woman-like creature just started sauntering forward. I watched it stalk across the room, slowly closing in on my neighbor. Then she raised those strange arms and she opened her mouth, and it was like her whole head split open. She towered over the girl at the desk, all pointy teeth and pointy arms, and somewhere in there I realized I was desperately banging on the glass, but I was too far away to make any difference. The girl didn't even have a chance to scream. The creature struck, squeezing its inhumanly long arms around my neighbor, and her whole head just sort of disappeared into the creature's. I saw her arms flailing, nails clawing at the arms around her for what seemed like ages. Then she just kinda went limp. At this point I know I should have done something, anything, but I was just kinda frozen in place. My mind was reeling. I just kept thinking this couldn't be real. I don't know how long the thing just hunched over her like that, but the next thing I saw was the girl's body slumping forward, head hitting her desk, arms hanging loose, like some kind of a rag doll. The creature had risen back to its full height, and it turned away, and started back across the apartment. Her gait was different this time. More casual. It wasn't stalking prey. I watched breathlessly as the creature paused in front of the air vent. And then it turned and looked out the window. Right at me. I jumped behind the little section of wall that separates the windows, standing sideways, holding my breath, praying somehow it didn't see me. I didn't want to look, but I had to know what it was doing. I leaned forward, edging back in front of the window, peeking with one eye. But there was nothing there. The creature, or woman, or whatever it was. She was just gone. My heart was running a marathon, but there was nothing for me to do now. I found myself just kinda staring at the girl, slumped on her desk, for what I think was a long time. Then she sat up. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more surreal. How was she not dead? She stirred, and kinda gingerly sat back in her chair. She looked around, like she was confused, then I saw her staring at her screen for a minute and she just started typing again. Like nothing had happened. So I came on here and started typing this up. I didn't really know what else to do, but I thought I'd better get it down while it's still fresh, before I start second-guessing myself. I didn't drink or anything at the bar. Not anything that could. Oh no, my vent is making a weird noise. Home alone. My best friend's parents were out of town one weekend and she had the house to herself. She went about her business having dinner, watching TV, then decided to go to bed. She was lying in her bed with her back to her closet when she heard the door open. She somehow pretended to be asleep. The man who was hiding in the closet walked around her bed to the side she was facing, gently stroked her hair and face, then left. She immediately called her boyfriend to ask him to come over, then called her parents, and then the police. Long story short, this man had been getting into their home via a doggy door. They didn't have a dog and didn't bother to secure it either, and he'd been living in a tent in the wooded area behind their home for months to creep on her. They also found a ton of surveillance footage of her sleeping and pieces of her clothes and other of her personal items. The body in the barrel. The Raina Marroquin story. A young lady had an affair with her boss in the 1960s and got pregnant. After threatening to tell her boss's wife, she was killed by her boss, who then put her body in an industrial barrel. He hid the barrel in his house for years, and none of the various owners opened it due to the weight. Finally, one guy decided to dispose of it in the 90s, and when he opened it he saw it contained something. An investigation traced the barrel and girl back to the man who then killed himself before police could come arrest him after confirming he was the father of the unborn baby via DNA. The lady's mother was in her late 80s when she was told her missing daughter was finally found. She claims that she had been having dreams about her daughter being inside a metal container for years after she had gone missing. Oceanic predators. Marine biologists attached a tag to a 9-foot-long great white shark. The device measured temperature and depth to monitor the shark's movements. The tag was later found washed up on a beach. Its data showed that 4 months after it was attached, the female great white abruptly dove to a depth of 1,903 feet or 580 meters. The ambient temperature surrounding the tag spiked from 46 degrees to 78 degrees. The data suggested an attack. So this tracker, attached to a great white, was pulled down rapidly and measured higher temperatures consistent with some animals' internal body temperature. Do not try to find us. This isn't a scary story, but it's spooky and always captured my imagination. One day a bunch of, I think they were police in training, explored some of the catacombs under Paris. A lot of them are completely unmapped. They entered an area and heard dogs barking and snarling. They continued going and saw there were speakers mounted on the wall, playing pre-recorded dog sounds and cameras. They continued. They came into this huge opening and found a cinema. It was lavishly decorated. It had projectors and a mix of old and new movies. It even had electricity running and 3 phone lines. The police marked where they were and went back outside. The next day they returned to try and investigate further with more experienced officers. Everything was gone. All the wiring had been ripped out, all the furniture was gone. All that remained was a note that said, "Do not try to find us." As far as I know, they never figured out who was there.